It's application library is something we'll touch on very quickly. It's a relatively easy thing to go through, but you know, all of that work that we're doing with vendor assessments and POAs is brilliant. It's very useful, and I'm sure when you do your own due diligence, it's very useful. The feedback that I've always had from clients, though, is that this is great if I'm a data protection lead, a data protection officer, risk manager, but this isn't necessarily the easiest information to transfer over to staff. It's very comprehensive, it's very detailed, it does that due diligence, it discharges our accountability, but it's not something that I'm going to present in front of a member of the teaching staff, for example. But one of the other bigger problems that we see is it's not just about the checks and balances we need to do with vendors, it's also about the kind of the management of applications that are occurring now, because obviously edtech has absolutely exploded. There are all kinds of applications we can be using. We know there were some issues recently for schools with age restrictions and Google apps and having to try and work that out overnight almost, it felt like. So another kind of response to what we believe and we know for experience of clients you need is some way of starting to not just manage applications, but for staff to clearly understand what has been approved and what's been rejected. And I think rejected is just as important as approved, because I know from my conversations is that there's a lot of communication, a lot of back and forth. Can I use this? Why can't I use this? We want to use this. And it puts a lot of time and burden on certain members of staff at the school to try and kind of fulfill. No one wants to prohibit staff from wanting to use new, exciting, innovative tools. But at the same time, we're back to our checks and balances. We know there are things that we have to do, and we have to protect our data subjects, the personal data that we may be transferring with them, the risk of safeguarding. So the application library is effectively, in my mind, the way I see it is it centralizes all those workflows, right? It makes it a single user interface where all of this can be managed, both from decision making, but all the way from staff who want to make requests. So, and you can see here, there's obviously some very close synergies. So you can see here that this is imagine this was your school's application library. It's going to be very customized to you, but you will be able to have all of the applications that staff are allowed to use. Okay, they've gone through the checks and balances. They've been decided before, and that means that staff can actually come in and use this and say, oh, brilliant, I want to use Adobe, and I'm pleased it's approved. Right? There's even the workflow for the request. So you can actually submit the request straight away. So as a user, James Wigginton, data privacy project manager, said they want to start using Adobe, and that email can go to your IT ticket support system, for example. It can go to whatever your current process is, who enables software usage. EdTech coordinators, very much up to you as part of the concierge as we set you up. There will also be a new application request, another workflow. I know there can be a bit of a pain for schools. So effectively, if a member of staff comes in and says, well, I can't see what I want here, it's not been approved, it's not been rejected, it's not visible to me, then they can request that. And Mark's actually in the process now, building that kind of form request as to, what are the key points that we want to capture from a member of staff before we entertain whether that's going to be an application that can be used or not. But what's brilliant here is, again, it really kind of translates digestible information to staff. So one of the things that I've heard with clients is, I have to tell people again and again why they can't use it. It's here. It explains it to you, right? So if they come in, they'll be able to see the reason why. There is age restrictions. It's not appropriate for the student age range that you teach. There are AI concerns.
Yeah, just sorry, James, just to pause you there. These and in relation to Donovan's question, the tags that we've selected, whether approved, rejected, or whatever, those don't mean anything, right? They are, when you go through this exercise, you select the rejected, the approved, whatever, it's your status. We're just sharing the feature that you can do that. So whilst BrainPop is showing rejected, that's just to show that you can use the rejected tag rather than the fact that don't be using BrainPop.
Yeah, AI is a really good example of this, because it's part of building this with you as a client is your logic. It's your permission levels as well, because AI, some schools are going to be very restrictive with AI and some schools are going to want to be more exploratory with AI. So it may be that as your logic, you want to reject it because that's not what policy is going to be at the school with AI, whereas another school will have a different threshold of tolerance with AI. So that may be accepted, that be approved in their version of the application library, which is, I think, to the point, Mark, right? There's obviously your own policy and decision making around usage of applications across the school.